If you close your company in the wrong way, you could end up losing everything and have problems for years to come. Some directors even lose a family home. Now, every year, directors make mistakes when shutting down the businesses, mistakes that in most cases could have been avoided. Now, I'm talking about bounce back loan fraud, overdrawn directors' loan accounts, preference payments, personal guarantees, issues that if left untreated could ruin your financial future. I have seen directors go into liquidation for £4,000 and then lose a family home, and others who ignore my advice and face years of investigations because they thought they could do things cheaper. Now, in this video, I will expose the 7 biggest mistakes directors make when closing a limited company in the UK, the traps you need to avoid, and how to protect yourself from personal liability. So stay to the end, because one wrong move could cost you everything. Chris Worden, I'm from Director First. Welcome to the video. Bounce back loan fraud. Okay, what is it? Back in 2020, business owners could apply to their banks to take out a bounce back loan, okay? It was self-certified, and that's where the problem is. Now, if you have done any of these things and then you go to liquidate, it's going to cause you a huge problem personally. Now, the first thing is if you took a bounce back loan and your business wasn't entitled to one and you go into liquidation, that's a problem. Now, if you were dormant, your business was dormant when you applied for the bounce back loan, you shouldn't have took one. You had to be of trading in January 2020 to qualify. And the typical story is I get a call off somebody, on one of my advisors, we have a look on company's house and the business has dormant accounts for that year 2020. If you had dormant accounts for that year 2020, you should not have took a bounce back loan. And if you took one and then you go on to liquidate, you're going to get in trouble. Next thing is if you inflated your turnover. Now, remember, you could apply for 25% of 2019's turnover, okay, capped at 50 grand. You could only estimate your turnover if your company was incorporated after January 2019. So if you've applied for too much, you then go into liquidation. It's going to get reported to the Insolvency Service. There's some serious consequences coming down the line for you. What happens if you spent it personally? Okay, let's define spending it personally. If you took the loan and you used it for your drawings from the business over a couple of years, you're not going to be accused of bounce back loan fraud. You've got another problem coming down the line that I'm going to come on to soon. But if you took 50 grand on the Monday and Tuesday you took it all out of your business, that is going to be an issue, okay? Because if you took a bounce back loan and can't repay it, and then you go into liquidation, the insolvency practitioner is going to investigate how the funds were used. If they think that there was fraud going on, they're going to report it to the Insolvency Service. The consequences are direct disqualification. It can be up to 15 years. We're seeing more and more directors being made personally liable for the bounce back loans that they shouldn't have taken. There's criminal charges that have been, loads of people are getting suspended prison sentences, and some have actually served prison sentences. Actually, they've gone to jail over this. It's really serious. The government has been cracking down on bounce back loan fraud, and it's like it was part of Labour's manifesto. So if you've misused bounce back loan monies, the key thing is really, I wouldn't be liquidating, and I'd be doing your best to pay that money back. Because if you go into insolvency, you are going to get some problems aimed at you. Problem number 2 is an overdrawn director's loan, okay? Right, if you've taken money out of the company that isn't salary, okay, you're taking it as a drawing in the hope that at the end of the year, when you do your accounts, you've made enough profit so your accountant can declare it as a dividend, right? Now, it's been a funny few years in the UK. A lot of people's revenues have fell, but you've still got to take the money to feed the kids, pay the mortgage, pay the rent. I understand. Now, most directors are advised to take a little bit of salary, generally around £1,000 a month, and top the rest up and declare a dividend out of profits. But the key part of that, what I've just said, is you have to be making a profit. If you're not making a profit and you have been taking these drawings at the end of the year, I know you think the dividends, but your accountant is going to classify them as on a director's loan that's overdrawn. And if the company is liquidated and there is an overdrawn director's loan account that's outstanding, a liquidator or insolvency practitioner is going to ask you to pay it back. Now, if you can't pay it back, and most can't, they're going to start pursuing you legally. Now, this becomes really problematic if you're a director that has assets, and that can be savings, it could be equity in a family home, it could be other business interests, it could be buy-to-lets. Now, if you've got nothing, like you're in rented accommodation with very little disposable income, an insolvency practitioner is not going to pursue you for that director's loan account. But if you have something, an insolvency practitioner is actually duty bound to try and get that money. So what you've got to do is you've got to have a conversation up front before you make a decision to go and appoint that liquidator. Now, what I do here is I help you understand, have you got a director's loan account? And we'll find that out through accounts, management information. If we've not got anything like that, we can actually use bank statements and help you understand what your position is. Once we understand if you've got a director's loan account and how much it is, we need to understand, well, has the insolvency practitioner got any hope of recovering the director's loan? So we're going to look at your personal situation, your personal wealth. Have you got assets? On your assets, do you have mortgages? What available equity is it there? What is your income and expenditure? And we'll speak to the insolvency practitioner and we will be able to negotiate some type of settlement. Remember, the more money you have, the more equity you have in your property, the harder it is to get a deal done. The key thing is you cannot appoint an insolvency practitioner until you've had this conversation. Now, they're all going to say to you, we can't make a decision on your director's loan account until we've been appointed. Now, that's true. So everything that they're going to say to you will be dependent on, once they're appointed, everything that you've said is true, okay? But if you're speaking to a firm that don't want to discuss this, or they're skirting over the problem, my advice is find another firm, okay? Listen, another problem you're going to come into is intercompany loans. And they're fairly similar to director's loan accounts. And that's where your insolvent company has lent money to another company. And this could be a company that's not connected to you, but generally it's connected by directors. And that debt becomes repayable to the liquidator on appointment. And again, this is stuff that your liquidator can find out by looking at a balance sheet or a latest set of accounts. Now, it's the same principle. The liquidator will look at the company that owes the money to the insolvent company and go, can I make a recovery here? Now, if the company that's lent the money has no assets, it has no nothing on the balance sheet, it's highly likely the insolvency practitioner will write this off, or they'll accept some type of settlement. Where it becomes really problematic, though, is if, let's say, you've lent it to a property company, and that property company has a lot of equity in the property. The liquidator won't be able to accept a settlement on that. You will have to pay all of the intercompany loan back to the liquidator. And if you can't do, the liquidator will take action to wind that company up. It's really, really important that you understand this and you work out a solution with the insolvency practitioner before you sign with them. Because once you've appointed an insolvency practitioner, you've got no room for manoeuvrability. It's very unlikely they'll do a deal with you. Now, the next problem people face when they close a company is personal guarantees. Now, Directors will sign a whole range of personal guarantees. It could be for an overdraft, it could be for a credit card, it could be for a supplier, it could be for a factoring company, it could be a personal guarantee on the lease of the premises. And when you go into liquidation, those personal guarantees are going to fall due. And whoever you've signed the personal guarantee with is going to ask you to make a repayment. Now that can scare the life out of most directors, but I want to give you some comfort. With personal guarantees, in most scenarios, some type of deals can be done. And that's where you pay them as full and final and offer them less than what the original debt's worth. Or in most cases, you're restructuring those loans over a longer period of time. So the business goes into insolvency, the personal guarantees are called upon, and it's down to you then to restructure those loans over the next few years. I have someone that I've worked with for years and years, Gary Whitehead. I've done a few podcasts with Gary. He can help you. Please don't panic if you've signed a personal guarantee. The key is understanding what is personally guaranteed before you make the decision on liquidation. Another problem that people are going to face is preference payments. Now, when you've become insolvent, so your business can no longer afford to pay its debts when it's full due, liabilities are more than their assets, you cannot prefer one creditor over another. So you can't pay back your Auntie Mavis, or you can't take let's say you lend money into a company when it's struggling and you know you're going to close. You obviously want your money back. But if you take that money in preference of everybody else, you'll be accused of making a preference payment. And that liquidator, insolvency practitioner, will come to you for the money that you've taken. Now, when you're paying suppliers or certain subcontractors towards the end, sometimes you'll be allowed to make a payment. Let's, for instance, you're trying to finish a job off and you need a certain amount of equipment to be on that job in order to get paid to bring more money into creditors, okay? That could be accepted. The key thing with preference payments is you've got to take advice on them early, okay? This is just general guidance I'm giving you. Another problem you're going to face is obviously staff redundancy issues. Because if you fail to get it wrong and you don't follow what you're meant to do, there could be employment tribunals, there could be claims. Let's say you're setting up a new company and you don't make staff redundant in the old company, or you make some redundant and you take other staff to your new company. Them staff that have been made redundant in the old company could file unlawful dismissal claims against the new company, causing you problems. So when it comes to staff redundancy, speak to an HR specialist ideally. The last problem I want to talk to you about is the reusing the company name. Now, when you go into liquidation, okay, close a company, Section 216 of the Insolvency Act states that you can't use the same or similar name for a period of 5 years. It's a prohibited name. And it's there to sort of, combat phoenixing, people just liquidating businesses and starting over again. But there is correct legal processes if you want to reuse a company name. Now, the first one, let's imagine it's Chris Worden Roofing, okay? Goes into liquidation. But I've also got Chris Worden Building Contractors. And Chris Worden Building Contractors has been trading, not just incorporated, it has been trading over 12 months. Well, Chris Worden is not a prohibited name then, because I already have a limited company that's been up and running over 12 months and trading. So that's one way of getting around it. Number two is you apply to the courts with your reasons as to why you can use the name again. Number three, and this is what most people will decide to do, if you're going into a liquidation, you will pay the liquidator for the name, okay? So you will pay the liquidator a fee for the name of the business, let's say a standard fee of, let's say £500 on the day of liquidation. You then have to advertise that fact that you've bought the name in the London Gazette or the Edinburgh Gazette if you're north of the border. You have to advertise that fact within 28 days. You also have to write to all the creditors of the company to tell them that you've bought the name. And as long as you follow that strict process, you will be able to reuse a similar name. Now, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comment section below and I'll personally reply to them all. And go and watch my next video, which I think is going to be in the corner. Chris Worden, Director First. Thank you.